everyone. My name is Allison Bako, and I'm on the writing team here at Staples. On behalf of Staples, thank you so much for joining us today. I know how busy everyone's calendars are, especially right now, and we really appreciate you taking an hour out of your day to be here with us. We've got a ton of great content and learning jam-packed into the next hour. We've all been navigating a new normal for over a year now, and I know many of us have yet to optimize our routines, whether it's working from home, learning from home, or both. That's why I'm very pleased to introduce to you our guest speaker today, Christiana Smith, who is the Associate Brand Manager of Expo. She's here today to give us some tips on managing a home schedule. She's also going to be showing off some really great DIY skills with some hands-on demos for a few creative solutions as well. Those I'm the most excited to share with you. We will be able to ask Christiana questions throughout the broadcast, so just scan the QR code that's on the screen or follow the link in the Eventbrite page. Our hope is to make the event as interactive as possible, so you can make your questions at any time throughout the session, and we'll just interject to Christiana with them. Christiana, over to you.
As Allison mentioned, I'm Christiana Smith, and I'm the Associate Brand Manager on Expo, and I'm really excited to be here today to share a couple of tips and tricks. So I know that our home has been adapted pretty quickly over the past year. Many of you have experienced shifting from an office culture to a work from home. Some of you have maybe even been working from home and had a couple of people tag on to your home office setup. Maybe even for some, there's a classroom that's now having to kind of be adapted for your home setup as students in your household are going through virtual or hybrid learning. So there's a lot of changes that have happened because of that. You're having to manage your schedules with others to make sure meetings don't correspond where you're talking over one another, and keeping children engaged and active in learning as they're home as well. And it's really hard to keep it all straight. So through the next hour, I'm going to be sharing tricks on how to stay organized. First of all, really working through the work organization section, where I'll be talking through a couple of tricks from what I've personally learned that now that I've been working from home for about a year now, as well as working through building a calendar board where I think that'll really help keep your schedules organized and coordinated in any way that you see fit. Second, we'll be sharing the home organization tips and tricks, where I'll talk through how to create a chore chart from a just plain dry erase board. And that can obviously be evolved and adapted as kids get older, and needs and schedules that need to be tracked can change. And then lastly, I'll be sharing a few learning from home activities that will be fun and engaging for students that are in school and wanting to learn in more of an engaging, fun way while they're home as well. So really excited to jump in and get started. And overall, I think one of the key things that I want to share is that all of these tricks that I'm sharing today are evergreen. So I know that COVID is happening right now, and some of you are working from home, and based on survey results, some are sort of back in the office in a hybrid manner, and some may be transitioning back to the office shortly. And because of that, I want to make sure that these tricks are going to be things that you can carry with you as your lives continue to adapt and evolve throughout the years. So these are definitely things that I'll be carrying with me as I go back to the office. So I hope you'll find these pretty relevant and engaging for you as well. So I'll start with the work organization part, where, as I mentioned, I was not planning on having my home become a home office, but here we are. And over the year, I've been figuring out ways to really adapt my setup at home, starting with my desk. So a few tips that I have, and really things that I've learned, not all at once. These have definitely been a learning as we go type situation, where one of the first things that I realized pretty quickly, though, was posture is very important, and staying comfortable at my desk while I'm working here is very key. So I've realized that getting a good chair where I am sitting, where my arms are at about a 90-degree angle for the desk, really helps me stay comfortable. I would recommend even getting a pillow if you may not be able to get a new chair or anything. A pillow for your lower back could be very comfortable for you as well. So anything to help really make your sitting as comfortable as possible is really key because you're going to be at your desk for the full work day. So being comfortable is really important. I've also learned that I have a new laptop stand where it lifts my laptop to meet the same level as my monitor that I use. And that's really made it a lot easier for me to kind of go back and forth between the two screens. So I would definitely recommend that because kind of looking at eye level for your monitor is also really important for your overall posture and comfortability. So those are a couple of desk tricks. And then also, what I wanted to share is a couple of tricks that I have for really just taking some time for yourself throughout the week. I know when we are in an office setting, we have these water cooler breaks with our coworkers where we're able to kind of take a break, walk to someone that you may not work with on a day to day basis, and you're able to kind of take a little break and talk to them for a bit. So, obviously, in a work from home environment, it's a little bit different. So, set up those meetings, camera on, for you and your coworkers to still connect and have those little break times as well. Now that it's starting to get a little bit warmer outside where I am, and hopefully where you are too. If not, it'll be coming soon, I promise. You can take some lunchtime walks. And I know not everybody is able to take a full lunchtime to step away from the house or be able to take long breaks. So that was something that I do when I can. But even if you take 5 to 10 minutes, grab some water, walk around your home, take a little bit of a break, that really will help you have a little bit of a mental reset so you can get back to work and finish the day a lot more productive and finish it strong. And I know someone in the survey questions asked about focus time. And honestly, taking a 5 minute walk around break really helps me stay focused as well. So I would definitely recommend that for those that are wondering about how to really stay focused and set focus times as well. So you could add a little break or a little block on your calendar for when you want to take those mental breaks away from the computer. So a couple of tips that I had for there. And then when you get back from your break and you want to kind of jump right in and get organized for your home office, one of the big organizational tips that I'm going to share with you and do a live demonstration for in a minute is building out a calendar board. So I've found pretty quickly that I needed a way to manage my work schedule as well as my home schedule as well, and keeping everything organized and straight. And I know in this environment, the lines are blurring. And I've honestly thought one of the easiest ways to separate work and home life is by putting them all in one calendar. And the reason for that is you're able to manage your schedule pretty easily when you're able to coordinate when deadlines are and when you have personal things going on as well. So that's one of the tricks that I've got that I'm really excited to share with you today. So, before we jump into the full demonstration, I wanted to talk and share with you some of the supplies that we'll be using. So, first up is the dry erase board itself. I'm using a calendar dry erase board that's been pre printed, so it's showing a monthly board. And we'll just be filling it in for the month of May. So, you guys are going to help me fill out my calendar for the month of May since it's coming up in a couple of days. In regards to the dry erase and wet erase markers that we'll be using, I'm going to start with the Expo Low Odor Fine marker, dry erase marker. And this is just a fine tip. You can see it here, and I'll also show it when I'm using it. But this fine tip really makes it easy to write in small spaces like the calendar board we're going to be using today. So very handy. It also comes in 17 colors, so we're able to really customize the dry erase board with the fine marker. And I do have a color coding system that I'm really excited to share with you. So having the variety of colors really helps with that. Second is the ultra fine marker, and similar to fine, but it has a very fine, very ultra fine tip, very precise. So you can really write very fine notes that you have if you've got a really detailed deadline that you really need to write a lot of notes in, but in a really small space. This is the dry erase marker for you. It writes very fine and very precise. So I really like this one. Third is our Expo magnetic marker, and this comes in fine as well as chisel or the broad tip. I have the fine here because, again, small board, so writing in small spaces. So I've got the fine magnetic, and a couple other handy features with this one is the magnet on the other end of the marker. So all Expo dry erase markers should be stored horizontally, whether that's on the board or in your desk. But if you've got the magnet marker, then you're able to store it easily and horizontally on the board. And then we also have an eraser at the end of the cap on the magnetic markers, and that makes it very easy to precisely erase small errors that you make if you misspell a word as you're writing, or you don't like the way that you wrote a letter. Very easily can erase just what you need to, and then fix it pretty quickly. So very efficient and very easy to use. So, and then the last marker is the vis-a-vis wet erase marker. And this is really great for a couple of reasons. So because it's a wet erase marker, the markings as you write will dry and stay on the board as long as you want them to. They do not erase unless you use a damp cloth or a liquid cleaner, something of that sort. So these marks will stay on the board as long as you intend them to, which is really handy for things that you know aren't going to change, like the numbers on the calendar that I'll show you, or birthdays, holidays, those things that aren't going to change during the month. So it makes it really efficient for when you're filling out the calendar board. Obviously, I know some things do change during the month, be it a meeting or something like that. So very easy to change what needs to be changed without having to accidentally erase more than you intended to. So a very handy marker there. And then we'll just be using a couple of other erasers. I've got the standard eraser and then some of the standard cleaner as well as our wipes. So the wipes are really easy for when you're erasing the full dry erase board at the end of the month and resetting it for the next month. So those are kind of the overall supplies that I'll be using, and we can jump right into the demonstration.
Hi, Christiana. It's Allison. As you're making your way over to your calendar board, we've had a couple questions come in already. So the first question that's pretty easy to answer that I can take is this session being recorded? The answer is yes, we are recording the session and are happy to share it with the rest of the team after. You'll get an email link if you want to share it with any of your friends and family. And then Christiana, a question for you is we've gotten a few questions around time management and how to prevent key tasks from becoming critical. If you could answer that one, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, as I'm going to be doing the calendar board, I've got a really handy to-do list that I think will help as well keep you on track for what is really critical in deadline, very quick deadline turnaround versus some of the longer to-do list items that you have. So you can kind of keep track of your day-to-day, week-to-week schedule and try to keep in mind all of the deadlines that you've got coming up. So I'll definitely work that into this demonstration. So thanks for the question. And if you have any other questions, please utilize that box, the Q&A, and we'll be able to answer anything that you've got coming up. So first step in using the calendar board that I've got here is to fill in the numbers of the month that you're going for or using. So we're going to do the month of May, as I mentioned. So first is taking the vis-a-vis wet erase marker and just filling in the different boxes for that correspond to the days of the month. So pretty easy, but again, once we fill these in, these numbers aren't going anywhere until I erase them at the end of the month. So very handy, less for me to have to rework if something changes later on. So that's the first step. Second step is to fill in any holidays or any other deadlines that aren't going to be changing. So I'll start with the holidays. And in the month of May, this is a reminder for anyone out there. Mother's Day is on the 9th of May. So I'm going to fill that in. And then again, I'm using the vis-a-vis because these holidays are not changing during the month. So Mother's Day, and then we also have Memorial Day at the end of the month. So I'll write that in. And then the reason I'm writing this one at the bottom is because we're splitting the day here. So if there's anything else that's happening on that Monday or Sunday, I'll want the room still. So that's kind of why I'm filling it out there. And next is filling in, again, any deadlines or birthdays. And I do have a birthday on the 24th, one of my friends. So I'll go ahead and fill that in more at the top. And then also any key deadlines. And this is the first color coding system that I've got. So for holidays, I kind of just color code it based on what I'm feeling that day. So for Mother's Day, use purple, and then Memorial Day, use blue. So really can be whatever you want. And then for deadlines, I have red, and that just kind of signals to me that there's a bigger deadline coming up that I really need to watch out for. So I'll go ahead and fill that in here. All right. And then what we're going to do is fill in any other types of holidays. So I've got, I'm going to take a little staycation day here. So I'm going to fill that in on the Friday of the 14th. So once I have all of the more permanent days, what I'm going to do is fill in any of the reoccurring events that I've got going on. So anything else that's coming up the month, also any reoccurring meetings. So the color coding system that I'm going to be doing right now is using blue for any of the project meetings that I have. These are weekly meetings, but really helps me kind of keep track of everything. So blue is for any project meetings. I've got pink for any team meetings. And then I have purple for any reminders. And this is kind of my first trick for anyone that's needing some help with their time management. So what I do is I'll fill in the blue first. So I'm going to do any of the project meetings that I have. I'm just going to fill that in here. And I am using the ultrafine marker for this. And the reason for it is you can see it's very, very fine writing here. And then what I'm doing is writing in the meeting at the bottom of the little block. And the reason for that is because I know this is a meeting that happens every Wednesday, but other things can come up throughout the week and be added on to my schedule for Wednesday. So this still gives me room to fill in as things happen and as things shift around. And so this still gives me that capability because, again, this ultrafine marker is right so finely that I can kind of still have a lot of the space left over. And I will do that same technique with the pink. And so I've got a team meeting twice a month on Tuesdays, so I'm going to fill that in. And then I also have a weekly meeting with my manager. So I'm going to fill that in as well. And again, using the bottom, so I've got a lot of extra space left over if I need it. And then to answer that question about any deadlines and how to keep track. So I will use purple for any reminders throughout the month. So if I know something is due, what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of write in, so I know that this will help me remember that I have to use this report that comes out for that deadline that I have coming up. So I am going to use that um, for that reminder. And then let's see. There we go. All right. So once all of the reminders are set up, another tip that I have is putting all of what you've got in the calendar into a to-do list. And the to-do list that I use has 3 different sections. So there's one section which is critical, and those are really anything that needs to be done within the next day or two. And I'm going to use this note section just to fill that out. So this board has a section dedicated to notes and reminders, which I think is really handy because you can kind of use this whichever way you want. And for me, I'm going to use it as a to-do list. So we've got critical, we've got this week, and this is pretty self-explanatory, but really anything that's done that needs to be done by the end of the week will go into that column or that section. And then more of the long-term tasks that are really due, I guess, by the end of the month if you want, if you need something, if you're a really procrastinator and you really need to have something on the list ahead of time to make sure that it gets done, I would definitely put the end of the month things in here. But so that way you have it somewhere pretty visible where you can see it and keep track of your typical tasks. So then you would just kind of fill this in as needed, what is really urgent. And then you can also use those purple guidances as reminders for what needs to be pulled in at what time. So that's kind of what I do to keep track of the schedule and everything that needs to be done throughout the month. And I hope that kind of helps answer that question. But let me know if you have any other questions for that as well. And I'll be very happy to help answer. And then the other thing that I forgot, which is why I'm building the calendar, is I have a dentist appointment. And that is pretty important to remember. So it is the 11th, I believe. So I'm going to put that up at the top since I know it's in the morning. And again, so one of the other benefits of Vis-a-Vis is it is not a permanent marker. So if that ends up changing or I need to do something later on and update it, I'm able to just erase it with a damp cloth. So don't feel like once it's on there for life. You'll be able to still erase it. It's a little bit better and easier to fix anything else without having everything that you really need to be more permanent on, and we're not having to erase all of those. So the next step is the fun part, and that is really making this board your own and making it a little bit more creative and doodle and add a couple of icons and imagery into some of this, so that way it helps you kind of just makes it a little bit more fun to look at and enjoy, and also just makes it more personal to you. So I can go ahead and just do a couple of examples of how that would look. So let's say for Mother's Day, I'll draw a flower because my mom loves flowers. And I'm going to be using a mix of Vis-a-Vis as well as Ultrafine because, again, the Vis-a-Vis marker, I don't need the doodles for Mother's Day to go away anytime soon. And then for Ultrafine, it just gets you that really fine detail. So you can really make some really awesome, unique images with that really fine, precise writing. And so then I'll do a little flower here. And then I'll do the leaf in the Ultrafine so you can really see how fine that is. Add a little different tones as well to that. Maybe I'll add some orange into the flower. So we've got a little flower, and then we can do some fireworks for Memorial Day, make it a little bit more fun. So again, really make this your own any way that you see fit. But this just adds a little bit more of that personal touch that I like. So that's that. And then for the birthday, you could draw a cake if you wanted to. So again, really making it your own and personalizing it. So once this is done, obviously throughout the month, things will change and shift around. You'll add more meetings as they come up and deadlines as they come up. So again, this is meant to kind of live with you through the month of May for this example. And then let's say that for this team meeting that I have on the 4th, it ends up getting canceled. I'll go ahead and erase that. And I'll show you. So I just made a pretty large erase because I wanted to get that full effect of erasing that canceled meeting. And I actually ended up erasing some of the GCAM meeting that I have on Wednesday because I wasn't using a really precise eraser. But the dentist and the number 11 have not been erased. So again, that makes it a lot more efficient for me because I only have to fix a little bit of the G. And then everything else is already intact. I don't have to worry about anything else to redo. So it makes it a lot more efficient when you're using the vis-a-vis for more of those permanent things. So that's just a quick example of how that works. And then I know I talked about the magnetic eraser, and you can see up here that we've got a magnetic eraser stored horizontally on the board. So it is a magnetic board. And then again, let's say I didn't like the way that I wrote this S in this meeting, and I just wanted to quickly erase that and rewrite it. I would be able to erase it with the end of this cap pretty effectively without having to erase anything else. And then I can just rewrite it with the ultra fine marker. So again, really precise and very handy overall. And I hope you guys can take away some of these little tips and tricks. And I hope this answered that question about the to-do list. If there's not any other questions regarding this, we can jump into the next demonstration, but I'll stop for questions.
Thank you for pausing, Christiana. There were a couple questions that had come in about helping with scheduling and paper organized, so keeping all of your papers organized. The one tip I would have for that is Christiana had made the great recommendation of using a color coding system, right? So all of her team meeting invites were in pink, and carrying that same color coding system through to your paper organization. So having a file folder, physical file folder that matches the color of that same system you use, whether it's for Outlook or your dry erase calendar. Christiana, anything else you would add to that one to help with paper organization?
No, and actually, I'm really glad that you mentioned that color coding system because I use that same system and these same colors in my Microsoft Outlook email. So I'm able to kind of keep it all consolidated. And I think carrying that color coding into the paper filing as well could be a really great way to keep everything organized. And I will say one of the first things that I bought when I was reorganizing and creating my home office was a filing cabinet because I did have a lot of paper that I needed to organize. So that was a really handy way for me to just really kind of quickly organize all of the papers, get everything organized. So that was one of the first pandemic purchases is what we've called them. But yeah, I think what you said was great.
One of my career mentors takes it even one step further and even uses specifically when she's writing on paper, specifically highlighting with the correct color or only writing in a pink or purple pen if her color for that person is pink or purple. So you can take that color coding system and organization and take it to the utmost degree. Those were all the questions that had come in at this time specifically related to that. So there's a few that I think I'm going to save for a little bit later, but I think we can keep going.
All right, great, thank you. We'll jump right into the next demonstration then. All right, so the next demonstration is building out a chore chart. And really what this is going to be, and I know depending on the ages of the kids or that are in your household, it could really this can be whatever you imagine it to be and however it fits best with your family. I think the great thing with this demonstration that I'm going to do is that the key thing is it really will grow with your family. It's not intended to just be, I think, with the connotation of a chore chart, it could be brushing teeth and doesn't go much further than that, but that's not the intention of this. So I think what's great is this can really build and grow with the family. So as the kids are younger, and that needs to be something that is on top of mind, that would be one of the first things that you would write on. And again, a lot of the techniques that I'm going to do with this is, can you guys see the board? I just want to make sure. But the first thing that I'm going to be doing with this is uh, filling in the grid marks the same way that I was mentioning doing for the calendar board, and I'm going to be using the vis-a-vis. And again, the reason for that, and especially for a chore chart or anything that is weekly, you'll obviously be erasing this more often. So because of that, you'll want these grid marks to stay on the board and intact, so you don't have to consistently weekly do the grid marks over and over again. So I think this is really handy for that. And I'll talk through also quickly what I did in building this out, because I was using a plain dry erase board for this, and I just took a ruler and kind of eyed out how much space I wanted on the left and the right side. The left was going to be where I put my chores and list them out. And then the right side is a little motivation section. So I think what makes it a little bit more personalized and more engaging for the kids to enjoy interacting with and using on a day-to-day basis is this little section where if you have multiple kids, so this is Emma and Jackson's chores, they can write messages to one another to support each other through finishing their chores and getting everything done for the day or the week. And it can also be a section for parents and guardians to write messages to the kids and get involved in supporting them as well. So I think it's a really fun section to have. And this can be personalized to however you want to do it for your family. But that's kind of the recommendation and what we'll be showing today. So I just used the little chart, the little ruler, and mapped it out. Both sides are about 2.5 inches on the chore section and the motivation section, and then just filled out Monday through Sunday, the different days of the week, and blocked them out, and then used the ruler to create the lines. So pretty quick and easy, but definitely something that you may not want to do on a weekly basis. So having that vis-a-vis is very handy for that. And I'm going to also use the vis-a-vis to write in all of the chores. So, and I'll also use some examples of some chores to show you guys how I personally think that this can really grow with the family. So we'll start with brushing teeth, making the bed, our more standard activities, but eventually these become habits, or hopefully they become habits. So maybe you'll kind of take this to a little bit of a next step and say, maybe clean the playroom, and then maybe also in the same concept, cleaning the bedroom more fully than just making the bed. And then it can really go even a step further. So as your kid gets older, wants to be more involved in helping with the overall home management, you can have them help with dinner. And that can obviously be designated and defined, whatever fits and suits the children's ages in your home. But I think that would be a great way to start getting them involved in a little bit more. And then it could even go to doing some yard work. So we'll say mow the yard. Then as they get older and the chores become habits and they get more used to supporting the home without having it necessarily listed on the chore chart, this can then become a place where the kids manage their own schedules and they're able to take the accountability and the independence of managing their overall extracurricular activities. So maybe they are practicing the piano So that's something that they would add. And then maybe even they do soccer practice. So that's something that they keep track of. And then eventually, the intention, and I think what would be great is as they get used to, again, tracking the extracurricular activities and getting more used to managing their weekly schedule, this could then transition into the overall calendar board. And then they're managing their monthly schedule once they are busy enough to have a schedule that needs to be managed on a bit more of a monthly basis. Maybe they're managing all of their classes and managing their homework on a monthly standpoint. This can then kind of help them transition into being just used to managing their time on a monthly cadence. So I think this is a skill that will be carried on as the children get older. Definitely something that I wish that I had and been asked to manage more independently. So I think this is a great way to kind of bring that manage time management into kids of all ages. So I've written the chore chart with those as the examples, and then again color coding. You can do it here as well. So I'm going to talk through how I would recommend doing it. So instead of having, if you have a household with multiple children, what you can do instead of having to use multiple boards, all you would really need is multiple colors. So let's say for this Emma and Jackson's, Emma will be green, and I'm just using the fine markers here, but Emma will be green and Jackson will be blue. And really, what you can do is have the kids on their own check off the chores on a day-to-day basis. So let's say they've both brushed their teeth already, made their bed, they'll just go ahead and check off those two chores like that, and then go through the week pretty easily, checking off as they go about their day and as they finish their chores. So that's pretty standard. But I think another really handy way that you can use the colors is as um, kind of the assigner of the chores. You're able to use them to say which days you need which kid to do the chore. So, for example, let's say helping with dinner, you don't need both kids or multiple kids to help each day. You can, let's say, Emma will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you can just draw an underline or any type of system that indicates for you that Emma will help Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Jackson, let's say, will do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Maybe Sunday is an off day, or you go out to eat, or you can assign them. But that I think is a really handy way to kind of assign chores on a day to day basis as needed, too, where they're getting used to that color coding system and owning that color. And then again, as they eventually get older, and start managing more of their practicing soccer, piano, any extracurricular activities, they can start maybe assigning their own days. So let's say Emma has soccer practice on Wednesdays. She can either draw a line for herself, or maybe she just writes the time that the soccer practice is, so it keeps her on schedule. And she can kind of, let's say it's 5 p.m. So she can just write that in pretty easily, and it keeps her on track. She may not need to do the check mark system anymore if she's older. So that's just a way to help her keep track of things. And then let's say she has a match on Sunday, she'll write that in. Maybe she could write the time as well. And then a great way to be using the motivation or messaging board section is then to be able to, let's say you go up and see that she's got a game and you know that she has a game coming up. You can just go ahead and write good luck and use that for that. Jackson could write a message to her and show his support as well. So I think this is a great way that this can be used kind of throughout that child's life pretty easily and effectively. And then again, I'll show and demonstrate the benefit of erasing only what's needed. So let's say the week is done. All you need to do is erase this part and everything else stays intact, which again, very handy, very efficient. Very easy to redo and start over for the next week.
I love that one, Christiana. It's so helpful and so easy to work through. And I also love the motivation and leaving comments for siblings. That one's really fun.
Yeah, thanks. And then the other great thing is this is just a template, just using a chore chart as an example, but this can then be adapted to any other household management that you may need. Let's say it's a menu board. This kind of outline would be pretty much the same for that as well. So maybe the motivation section becomes your grocery list, and this chore section becomes the breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. So it can really be adapted to a lot of different needs depending on what you really need the most kind of help with in managing the home schedule. But I do think it's a great little tactic to use. All right, any other questions come up?
Not at this time.
Okay, great. Well, we will jump right in then to the learning from home section. So again, this is really for any parents or guardians on the phone that have students of school age learning from home and kind of working through some of those different activities and trying to keep them engaged, but also learning is obviously a very important aspect of this. So I think these will help with a couple of engaging activities as well. So to start, there is a really fun and STEAM oriented activity with Floating Expo. So, one thing about the Expo dry erase markers is that they are obviously not meant to stick to a surface, very easily erased. And because of that, what you'll see is they will float on a nonstick or a non-porous surface. So what I'm doing is I'm taking just a fine marker and drawing a shape. I'm just going to draw a square and coloring that in like this. And then I will take some water and slowly pour in the water on the bowl, in the bowl. And what you can see is the shape is lifting up from the surface and it is now floating. So it's a very fun, very cool trick for kids of all ages, honestly. And really the science behind it. So this could be correlated to a STEAM activity for a couple of reasons. So because of the ink, and it's not meant to stick to a non-porous surface, it easily separates once you add the water to it. And then the reason it floats, as you can see here, is because the ink is less dense than the water. So you could really adapt this to kids of different ages as well. So maybe the challenge for a kid that's younger is learning how to write or learn their shapes. So you could say, hey, draw a square, and we'll kind of see what happens when we add water to it. And it can be a little bit more fun with the water and the floating aspect of it. And then they're just learning their shapes in a really fun and engaging way, which any engaging activity will really help kids remember what they're learning. So it could be that, or as the kid gets older, if you have an older kid, it could be more about the scientific method. So will this float is the kind of hypothesis, and I think it will, and kind of answer through the scientific process if it floats and why. So it's a really fun activity, pretty quick. Obviously, you can see that this was a pretty fast activity overall, but I think it does a great job of engaging students as they're learning. So that's the first activity that we've got. Any questions there?
No questions, just that one's my favorite.
Relocate this. It's a fun one. All right, and then the other activity that we have is using a different surface, so using a dry erase sheet. And this really is a little pocket folder where you can open it and add in your own sheets and learning materials inside and then close it up. And then it ends up being a surface that you can easily write on. So I've got some water I want to clean up, but overall, pretty easy to use and write with. So I've got a little math sheet right here for this example. And I'll just fill in a couple of the different answers that we've got. Anyone on the phone, if they see an error, there's a reason for that. So let's say I finished the equation, pretty easy to draw on, as you can see. And then as the grader of the math assignment, you'll quickly review and kind of explain what you are looking at. Let's say this is wrong, so I'm gonna just X that pretty quickly. And then this is wrong as well. So as the student, they could be watching this and you're talking them through. And then again, kind of taking that eraser from the magnetic cap, the student would just easily erase the wrong answers and then try again. And they could either use the same marker or something different. But I think the really good benefit of the dry erase sheets are that it's really easy to reuse materials without having to just throw away the paper every time. So really easy to help solve kind of some of that preventing throwing away paper. So this is a really handy technique, pretty quick, and you can use this in any type of learning scenario. So again, if they're learning to write, you can insert some dotted line paper and they could just be tracing the letters or writing their own letters or sentences as they're kind of learning that way as well. So it can be used for a couple of different ways and methods, whatever worksheets that the teacher sends home or has offered, you're able to kind of put them in and then reuse them for other purposes. So that is the other learning activity.
Thank you so much for walking us through those 3 learning experiences, Christiana. They were really helpful. And again, the kid in me loved the floating expo. I can't wait to do that again as an adult.
It's a good one.
There were a couple.
Hey, it's for all ages, so.
Yes. There were a couple questions that had come in about productivity and procrastination. So how can I stop procrastinating? And the other question was, what are some new trends in productivity tools? So I could take a stab at that one at first. What I would honestly recommend is heading to staplesconnect.com/possibilities. There's a host of great technology items there to help with productivity. A few of my personal favorites are, one is there's an item called a productivity cube. The question that I had talked about procrastination, I think this would help the most with. This is something that I personally struggle with as well. And one of the things that has helped me with this is the productivity cube. It sounds really simple, but I think that's what also makes it so special. It's just a cube that you pick a time to focus on something, set the timer, and then wait for it to be over. So you can set a 5-minute or an hour increment. And unlike a phone alarm, there are no apps or texts to distract you. So you really get to focus on something for however long you set yourself to focus on that one thing. The other great one is the Mobile Pixels Trio Max monitor. That's a mouthful, but most people know that a second monitor can really help with productivity. You can be up to 50% more productive, especially on your computer screen, just by having a second monitor. This one is extra special because it's portable. So it's a monitor that you can connect to your laptop to give you a double screen on the go. It was developed right here in Boston by some MIT and Northeastern grads. Again, I would head over to staplesconnect.com/possibilities and check out all the great tools there for productivity, procrastination, all of that stuff. Christiana, anything you would add to that one?
No, I think that's great. And those are helpful. I'm going to keep that in mind for myself too. Those are really helpful tricks. So, and again, I think what helps is just having those reminders. So whatever color maybe you don't need to color code, but adding those into your daily, weekly, monthly routine and adding those little reminders throughout. So that way you're constantly seeing those reminders pop out on your calendar board or on that long-term list, you have something that you know you're going to procrastinate, if you put that in the long-term section on the to-do list, and then you're able to kind of keep that in mind, and then do a little bit at a time. So if your reminder ends up being, hey, I really need to get at least just this one section done or this one part done, 2 weeks before it's due, that is a step in the right direction. So try to break down whatever you're working on to sections, and that really helps manage my time when I'm doing that. So that would be my other recommendation for more of the procrastination piece.
I love that one. There were another question that came in about how do I keep scheduled and deal with clutter?
So I think the calendar board helps me stay scheduled and routined. So having that, and it could be on a weekly basis. So this isn't the only calendar board that exists. So there's so many different options for you in terms of if you need things tracked on a weekly basis, or maybe you need a larger space that is kind of your own. Or you want to make your own calendar board, and you can use just a plain dry erase board and outline it the way that you see fit and the way that fits your lifestyle the best. So there's a lot of options out there. So I would just kind of start taking a look at what is available, and then scheduling based on kind of what fits what you need to schedule for.
That makes complete sense. The last question that we have here is, as the lines between work and home become blurred more and more every day, and it looks like they will be to continue for the future, how to separate work and home organization?
Yeah, so I mean, you could do that in a couple of different ways, but I think if you want them to be completely separated, and I know I personally blended my home and personal activities with my work calendar. If you don't think that that would work for you, you could absolutely have two different boards and put them in different spots in your home. Maybe one stays in your room, or it could be even in the family room. So keeping everybody involved in maybe the home calendar, and then having your work one separated, or just using something else for your home schedule. But I think having those two things separated, if that physically helps you kind of keep everything organized, then that would definitely be a great alternative as well.
Love that one. Those were at this time all of the questions that had come in, so we can actually wrap up a little bit early. I just wanted to say quickly, thank you so much to Christiana. I know you did a ton of hard work for this one, and it was so kind of you to share all of your great information and helpful tips with all of us. So thank you so much for passing along all of your great knowledge. Also, thank you to everyone watching here today for your time and questions. As we said at the beginning, we'll follow up with a recording of the session for you to reference, and you can also visit staples.com/possible for even more resources and inspiration to help you learn and work from home more efficiently and effectively. And with that, we'll wrap things up. Have a great day, everyone.